24 hours. That's how long it took for Adrian Roy to go from humiliating a waitress at his own charity gala to sitting across a boardroom table while that same waitress held his termination papers. Adrian Roy, heir to Roy Holdings, a $3.2 billion hospitality empire, spanning 47 luxury hotels across 3 continents. The man who'd never heard the word no in his 31 years of life. The man who'd mocked a woman for spilling champagne on his $15,000 tuxedo, with a smile that said he owned not just the room, but everyone in it. "You'll be polishing glasses for people like me your whole life." He'd said it loud enough for 300 guests to hear. Cameras had captured the moment. The footage went viral within hours. 6.3 million views by morning. But here's what Adrian didn't know when he said those words. The woman he was mocking, she wasn't just a waitress. She was Zara Malik, Harvard-trained economist, senior analyst for the Lennox Family Trust, and the person who just spent 3 weeks undercover, evaluating whether his empire was worth acquiring or dismantling. Her recommendation, submitted 6 hours after his public humiliation: dismantle the leadership, acquire the assets, restructure from the ground up. And now she was sitting across from him as his new boss, Chief Cultural Integration Officer, with full authority to reshape everything his family had built. How does a billionaire become subordinate to the woman he humiliated in under 24 hours? How does public cruelty become career suicide that fast? Stay with me, because this story will show you that sometimes karma doesn't wait for the afterlife. Sometimes it shows up the next morning with an acquisition agreement and a very long memory. Subscribe now. I research and craft these stories of instant justice and poetic reversals. Your support keeps these powerful narratives coming. Now let's go back to the moment everything changed. The Royal Grand Ballroom looked like something from a different century. All gold leaf and crystal chandeliers, marble floors polished to mirrors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Adrian Roy's annual charity gala, giving back to those who serve us, was this year's theme. The irony would become apparent later. 400 guests. Old money, new money. Tech billionaires trying to look like old money. Everyone in designer everything, sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's weekly grocery budget. A jazz trio played in the corner. Servers in crisp black uniforms moved through the crowd like ghosts, seen when needed, invisible otherwise. That's how Adrian Roy preferred his staff. Present, but not people. Zara Malik had been working the event for 4 hours. This was her 3rd shift that week. She'd volunteered for every available slot, building rapport with the permanent staff, observing management interactions, documenting everything. To everyone else, she was just another waitress. 27, pretty in an understated way, efficient with drink refills and canapé trays. She wore the uniform well. Black slacks, white button-down, the name Zara, embroidered over her heart in script so small, most guests never bothered to read it. But Zara noticed everything. The way the events manager barked orders at staff in the kitchen, then spoke in syrup to guests. The way tips were pooled, but somehow never made it past management. The way bathroom breaks were timed and penalized. She'd filled 19 pages of notes in 3 weeks. Labor violations, hostile work environment, wage theft disguised as administrative fees. Tonight would be her last shift. Tomorrow, she'd present her findings to Eleanor Lennox. And Roy Holdings, built on 3 generations of treating service workers like furniture, would learn what happened when furniture started talking back. Adrian made his entrance at 8:47 p.m., fashionably late to his own event. He looked exactly like Central Casting's idea of a billionaire heir. 6'2", sharp jawline, perfectly styled dark hair with just enough gray at the temples to suggest gravitas he hadn't earned. Custom Tom Ford tuxedo. Swiss watch worth more than a car. The kind of confident smile that came from never having to worry about anything except which yacht to take to the Hamptons. He worked the room like a politician. Handshakes, cheek kisses, laugh lines deployed at precisely calculated moments. Adrian, darling, a woman in diamonds grabbed his arm. This venue is stunning, and for such a worthy cause. We're raising money for people like them. Adrian gestured vaguely toward a server passing with a tray. The backbone of hospitality. Couldn't do what we do without them. The server, a young man named Marcus, who Zara knew was working 3 jobs to support his mother's medical bills, kept his face neutral and kept walking. Zara watched from near the bar, filed the interaction away. Subject demonstrates performative charity while maintaining dehumanizing language, they staff. This incident happened at 9:23 p.m. Zara was refilling champagne glasses at a high-top table near the stage where Adrian was preparing to give his speech. She'd done this hundreds of times. Careful angles, steady hands, eyes on the poor. But Adrian had been gesturing dramatically to a group of investors, and his elbows swung wide just as Zara approached with a fresh bottle. The collision was his fault, pure physics. His momentum, his space, his lack of awareness. The champagne, 400 per bottle, Dom Perignon, splashed across his tuxedo jacket. Not a lot, maybe 2 ounces, but enough. The conversation stopped. Heads turned. Zara stepped back immediately. I apologize, sir. Let me... Are you kidding me? Adrian's voice cut across the room. Not shouting. Somehow worse. That controlled anger that came from someone who'd never had to control anything else in his life. Sir, I'm so sorry. If you'll allow me to. Do you have any idea what this costs? He held out his arm, champagne darkening the fabric. This tuxedo costs more than you make in 6 months. Zara kept her voice level, professional. I understand. I can get club soda immediately. Club soda. He laughed. The sound carried. You think club soda fixes this? People were pulling out phones now. Zara could see it in her peripheral vision. Cameras rising, recording. I can arrange for professional cleaning, sir. I'll speak with management about... Management? Adrian turned to the crowd, playing to them now. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We open our homes, we provide employment, we create opportunities, and this is the gratitude we get. Adrian, one of his friends said quietly, it was an accident. Was it? Adrian looked at Zara directly for the first time, really looked at her, and she saw it in his eyes, not just anger, but something worse. Contempt, like she was a stain, not a person. Or was it someone who doesn't belong in a room like this, getting overwhelmed by her surroundings? The cruelty was casual, effortless. Some people, he continued, voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom, don't belong where the crystal costs more than their monthly rent. You'll be polishing glasses for people like me your whole life. Maybe try to be better at it. Laughter. Not from everyone. Some guests looked uncomfortable, but enough people laughed to make it a moment. A shared joke at her expense. Zara stood there, tray in hand, face carefully blank. She didn't defend herself, didn't argue, didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She just nodded once. Again, my sincere apologies, Mr. Roy. Then she turned and walked back toward the kitchen with perfect posture, perfect composure, perfect control. Behind her, Adrian was already moving on, accepting a fresh tuxedo jacket from an assistant, making a self-deprecating joke about hazards of the job, returning to his speech about giving back to those who serve. But 3 servers had recorded the whole thing, and one of them, Marcus, the young man with the sick mother, posted it to TikTok at 9:47 p.m. with the caption, Billionaire mocks waitress at charity event, 4 waiters. This is who you're donating to. By midnight, the video had 47,000 views. By 2 a.m., 380,000. By the time Adrian woke up at 10 a.m. the next morning, it had 2.3 million views, and the hashtag Billionaire Bully was trending in 4 countries. His PR team was in full panic mode. His phone had 63 missed calls. His email was flooded with press requests. And across town, in the Lennox Family Trust headquarters, Zara Malik was presenting her final report to Eleanor Lennox and the Acquisition Committee. Roy Holdings demonstrates systemic cultural toxicity from leadership down, Zara said, her PowerPoint showing 3 weeks of documented violations, wage theft, hostile work environment, deliberate suppression of labor complaints. Last night's incident, which I did not stage, but which occurred exactly as I predicted it would, is symptomatic of leadership that views service workers as subhuman. She clicked to the next slide. However, the underlying assets are sound. Hotels are profitable. Brand recognition is strong. Problem is entirely leadership and culture. Eleanor Lennox, 68, sharp as a scalpel, built a fortune by seeing opportunity where others saw risk. Leaned forward. Recommendation? Acquire. Replace leadership. Restructure compensation and labor practices. The Roy name stays on the buildings, but not in the C-suite. Zara paused. I also recommend we accelerate due diligence. The viral video gives us leverage. Their stock is already down 4% in pre-market. Board will be desperate for stability. And the labor lawsuit settlement from 6 months ago proves pattern, gives legal justification for leadership removal as condition of acquisition. Eleanor smiled. You've done well. How would you feel about staying on to implement the restructuring? Zara had prepared for this question. I'd be honored. Good, because I'm appointing you Chief Cultural Integration Officer. You'll report directly to me. You'll have full authority to reshape labor practices, compensation structures, and workplace culture across all 47 properties. Eleanor's eyes gleamed. And you'll start by meeting with current leadership, including Adrian Roy. When? Tomorrow. I want him to understand exactly who's in charge now. Adrian's lawyer called at 3 p.m. The Lennox Family Trust has finalized acquisition of Roy Holdings. 62% controlling stake. Deal closes tonight. You're being asked to attend a transition meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Adrian had dropped his phone. Picked it up. What? How is that? We weren't even in serious talks. You were. For 6 months. The board voted this morning. Unanimous. The viral video accelerated timeline, but this was happening regardless. My father, your father abstained. He's stepping down as chairman, effective immediately. The room had spun. Who's taking over operations? You'll meet her tomorrow. Her. Adrian had assumed it would be Eleanor Lennox herself, or one of her senior VPs, someone with gray hair and decades of experience. He had no idea. No idea at all. Family, have you ever said something cruel and had it come back to destroy you within 24 hours? Have you watched someone underestimate the wrong person? Drop a comment, because what happens in that boardroom tomorrow will redefine what instant karma looks like. Ready for Chapter 2? Comment, reversal, and I'll show you the exact moment Adrian realizes the woman he mocked now controls his entire future. The Lennox Family Trust occupied floors 38 through 42 of a glass tower in Midtown. Clean lines, understated luxury, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Adrian arrived at 8:53 a.m., 7 minutes early, wearing his second most expensive suit, and the expression of a man preparing for battle. His lawyer, David Chen, walked beside him. "Let me do the talking. They want cooperation, not confrontation. Your best play is gracious transition." Gracious transition, Adrian's voice was tight. "They hostile took my family's company because of a 30-second video. They acquired your family's company because your board voted to sell. The video just accelerated timeline." David stopped at the elevator. "And Adrian, whatever happens in that room, do not lose your temper. These people now control your future." The elevator doors opened on the 41st floor. Reception area. A woman at the desk smiled professionally. "Mr. Roy, conference room A, they're expecting you." The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 12 people already present. Lennox executives, legal team, the CFO Adrian recognized from quarterly reports. And at the head of the table, reviewing documents with the focused attention of someone who actually read what they signed, Adrian stopped walking, stopped breathing, because sitting there, in a charcoal business suit, hair pulled back, wearing glasses he'd never seen on her, looking every inch the executive she actually was. Zara, the waitress from the gala. Except she wasn't a waitress. Had never been just a waitress. She looked up, met his eyes. No recognition, no acknowledgement of their previous encounter. Just professional assessment. "Mr. Roy, thank you for coming. Please, sit." Adrian stood frozen. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. What are you?" "Sit down, Adrian," David whispered urgently. Adrian sat, mechanical, numb. Eleanor Lennox entered through a side door, commanding attention without saying a word. She took the seat beside Zara. "Mr. Roy, I'm Eleanor Lennox. We've met briefly at industry events. This is Zara Malik, our Chief Cultural Integration Officer. She'll be leading restructuring efforts across Roy Holdings." Adrian couldn't stop staring at Zara. You were at the gala. You were working, yes." Zara's voice was calm, professional, nothing like the quiet apology she'd offered 2 nights ago. "I was conducting a ground-level culture assessment as part of our due diligence process. Standard practice for Lennox acquisitions." "You were undercover." The words came out strangled. "I was doing my job." She opened a folder. "Which brings us to today's agenda. Lennox Family Trust has acquired 62% controlling stake in Roy Holdings. The board has approved a comprehensive restructuring plan. You're here because decisions need to be made about your role going forward." Parenthesis. "My role?" Adrian's voice rose. "It's my family's company." "Was your family's company," Eleanor corrected gently. "As of midnight last night, we are the majority stakeholders. Your family retains 23%. The remaining 15% is publicly traded, but operational control now rests with Lennox." Adrian turned to his lawyer. David's face said everything. "This is real. This is happening. Do not make it worse." Zara slid a document across the table. "This is the cultural assessment report I filed 48 hours ago. I recommend you read it." Adrian picked it up with shaking hands. The first page was titled, "Roy Holdings, Systemic Labor Violations and Leadership Accountability Failures." His eyes scanned bullet points. Wage theft via unauthorized deductions, $2.7 million over 18 months. Hostile work environment complaints, 47 filed, 43 dismissed without investigation. OSHA violations, 12 across 8 properties. Retaliation against employees who reported safety concerns. Management culture of dehumanization and class-based discrimination. Each point had footnotes, dates, names, documentation. "This is," Adrian looked up, This is biased. You had an agenda. I had a job, Zara said evenly. Which was to determine if Roy Holdings was worth acquiring, or if the cultural rot made it unsalvageable. I concluded the former, but barely. She clicked a remote. A screen lowered behind her. Video footage appeared. Not from the gala. From security cameras inside Roy hotels. A manager, screaming at a housekeeper for taking a bathroom break. You're paid to clean, not piss. Move faster or you're fired. Another clip. Kitchen staff working 14-hour shifts with no breaks, one chef collapsing from dehydration. Another, HR director, laughing about a sexual harassment complaint. She should be grateful anyone's paying attention to her. Each clip was time-stamped, documented, undeniable. Adrian felt sick. This footage was obtained legally through internal compliance audits, Zara continued. It represents a pattern of behavior that starts at the top and filters down. When leadership treats workers as disposable, everyone below them does the same. Eleanor leaned forward. The labor lawsuit you settled 6 months ago. That was 19 housekeepers claiming wage theft and unsafe working conditions. Your legal team paid them off, made them sign NDAs, and buried the story. But it flagged our risk assessment team. That's why we started looking at Roy Holdings in the first place. Adrian's mouth was dry. I didn't know about. You're the chief operating officer, Zara said. You've held that title for 3 years. You absolutely knew. You just didn't care. The words hit like a physical blow, which brings us to today's decision. Eleanor folded her hands. You have 2 options, Mr. Roy. Option 1, resign immediately. We'll provide standard severance, a non-disparagement agreement, and you walk away clean. Or, Adrian forced the word out. Option 2, Zara met his eyes directly. You stay. Under probationary employment, you report to me. You participate in the cultural restructuring, not as leadership, but as someone learning what service actually means. 6 months. If you demonstrate genuine change, we'll discuss future roles. If you don't, you're terminated. Adrian stared at her. You want me to work for you? I want you to work for the company, under new values, with actual accountability. She paused. You can keep your last name on the buildings, Mr. Roy, but not above the people who actually make them run. Adrian's first instinct was rage, pure, incandescent fury. How dare she? How dare they? But David's hand was on his arm, warning, and something else was cutting through the anger. Shame. Because he'd watched those videos, heard his managers say things he'd probably said himself in different words, seen the culture he'd helped create. And he remembered Zara, standing in that ballroom, tray in hand, while he'd told 300 people she'd spend her life polishing glasses. She'd been polishing something all right, a case against everything he'd built. Why? The question came out hoarse. Why offer option 2? You could just fire me. Why give me a chance? Zara was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer, but no less firm. Because 3 years ago, my father died of a heart attack in a Roy Holdings kitchen. He was 53. He'd worked double shifts for 2 weeks straight because your management threatened to fire anyone who called in sick during a busy season. He collapsed during dinner rush. Took 17 minutes for anyone to call an ambulance because the manager said they couldn't leave the kitchen until service was done. Adrian felt the blood drain from his face. His name was Idris Malik. He was a sous chef at your flagship hotel for 11 years. When he died, your company sent my mother a fruit basket and a termination letter, explaining his final paycheck would be reduced by the cost of the uniform he'd been wearing. The room was silent. After the funeral, they fired his friend, Chef Rafiq Patel, for causing a disruption when he tried to organize a safety petition. Zara's voice didn't waver, didn't break. So yes, Mr. Roy, I had personal reasons for taking this assignment. But everything in that report is factual, documented, and systemic. This isn't revenge. This is accountability. She leaned forward. I'm offering you option 2 because I believe people can change, not because you deserve a chance. Because the workers who still depend on this company for their livelihoods deserve leadership that actually gives a damn about them. And because watching you learn humility might be more valuable than watching you leave. Adrian couldn't speak, couldn't think. The weight of what she'd said, what his company had done, what he'd been complicit in, crushed him. You have 24 hours to decide, Eleanor said. We'll need an answer by this time tomorrow. The meeting adjourned. People filed out. Adrian sat there, alone with David, staring at nothing. What do I do? He whispered. David closed his briefcase. That's not a legal question, Adrian. That's a moral one. And I can't answer that for you. Adrian didn't go home. He went to a bar in Brooklyn, somewhere no one would recognize him, and drank whiskey until his hands stopped shaking. The video from the gala was still everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The comments were brutal. Hope she's his boss now, LMAO. Eat the rich, FR. This is exactly why billionaires shouldn't exist. One comment stopped him cold. My mom worked at a Roy hotel. They made her come in 2 days after surgery or lose her job. She went. Wound got infected. Almost died. Fuck this guy and his whole family. 43 replies agreeing, sharing similar stories. Adrian ordered another drink. And another. Around midnight, drunk and desperate, he called his father. What do you want me to do? Adrian asked, when the old man answered. They want me to work for her, the waitress. Do you understand how humiliating? Adrian. His father's voice was tired, disappointed. I voted to sell. What? I voted to approve the acquisition. After I watched that video. After I read the settlement files from that lawsuit. After I realized what we'd become. He sighed. Your grandfather built this company by taking care of people. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. You forgot that. So you're just giving up? I'm accepting consequences. Something you've never had to do. His father paused. Take the job, Adrian. Learn something. Or don't. And spend the rest of your life being exactly who that video showed you to be. Your choice. He hung up. Adrian sat in that bar until closing, staring at his phone, watching himself be cruel, over and over again, in a 30-second loop that had destroyed everything he thought he was. At 2 a.m., he finally stumbled outside into the November cold and threw up in an alley behind a dumpster. And for the first time in his 31 years, Adrian Roy understood what it felt like to have no power at all. Family. Pause here. Have you ever had to face the real consequences of your cruelty? Have you watched someone learn that power without compassion is just tyranny with better clothes? Drop a comment about accountability, because what happens next will show whether redemption is possible or just another word for damage control. Ready for the final act? Comment humility, and I'll show you whether a billionaire can learn to serve, or if some people are too broken to fix. Adrian called Zara's office at 8:47 a.m. the next morning. I'm taking option 2. There was a brief pause. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Be here Monday, 7 a.m. Bring work clothes and comfortable shoes. Leave the Rolex at home. She hung up. 3 weeks later. Adrian's first assignment wasn't in an office. It was in the kitchen of the Roy flagship hotel, the same kitchen where Idris Malik had died. Zara had been clear. You don't get to restructure culture from a desk. You learn it from the ground up, where your father learned it, where the people you've ignored have been working all along. So Adrian reported to executive chef Maria Torres at 6 a.m. Monday morning. She looked at him like he was a health code violation. "You're here to learn, not manage," she said flatly. "You follow orders. You stay out of the way. You do what you're told, when you're told. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. Start with dishes." The dish station was brutal. 100-degree heat, industrial sprayers, stacks of plates that never seemed to end. His hands, used to keyboard and handshakes, blistered within 2 hours. By hour 4, his back was screaming. By hour 6, he understood why people called in sick. A line cook named James, 22, culinary school dropout working his way up, stopped by during a break. "You're the guy from the video." Adrian didn't look up from the sink. "Yeah. My mom works housekeeping here. You cut her hours last year when occupancy dropped. She had to get a second job. Hasn't seen my little sister's school plays in 8 months." Adrian's hands stilled. "What's her name?" "Why, so you can fire her for talking to me?" "No, so I can." Adrian stopped. Realized he had no answer that didn't sound hollow. "I'm sorry." James studied him. "You know what's messed up? I don't think you even knew who she was when you cut those hours. That's almost worse than if you'd done it on purpose." He walked away. Adrian stood there, hands in scalding water, and felt the truth of it. He'd hurt people without even knowing their names. 2 months later, Zara had implemented changes systematically. New wage structures, 15% increases across hourly staff. Transparent scheduling. Paid sick leave. An anonymous reporting system with guaranteed investigation. The changes cost money. Board members questioned the ROI. Zara's response in the quarterly meeting: "Our turnover dropped 42% in 6 weeks. Training costs are down. Service quality scores are up 18%. Guest satisfaction is at a 5-year high. Treating people well isn't charity. It's business." The numbers backed her up. Revenue was climbing. Adrian watched these meetings from the back of the room, no longer at the table, but present as part of his cultural education. Watching Zara lead with competence he'd never demonstrated. After one meeting, she pulled him aside. "You've been consistent, showing up, following through. Chef Torres says you're actually trying. It's harder than I thought. Everything is harder than I thought. That's because you never had to think about it." She handed him a folder. "I want you to read this tonight. It's the complaint file from the labor lawsuit, the one you settled. I've read the settlement documents. I don't want you to read what your lawyers negotiated. I want you to read what the workers wrote, in their own words, what actually happened to them." Adrian read the file that night in his small apartment. He'd sold the penthouse to cover legal fees and his father's restructuring costs. 19 women, housekeepers. Their complaints in shaky handwriting, some in Spanish, translated to English. One woman: "Manager touched my back every day, said it was friendly, made me feel sick. When I reported, they moved me to overnight shift alone, so I quit." Another: "They take money from paycheck for supplies, but we buy our own cleaning products. When I asked why, they cut my hours." Another: "I worked here 11 years, got hurt cleaning bathtub. They said I could work or leave. I worked. My wrist still doesn't bend right." Page after page, person after person, system after system, designed to extract labor and discard humanity. Adrian had approved the settlement, had signed off on the NDAs, had never once asked to read what these women had actually written. He called in sick the next day, not because he was physically ill, because he couldn't face Chef Torres or James, or anyone whose mother or sister or friend might be in that file. Zara showed up at his apartment at 7 p.m. "You missed your shift. I know." "Why?" Adrian gestured to the folder on his coffee table. "Because I read it. All of it. And I don't know how to walk back into that building knowing what I let happen." Zara sat down across from him. "You think guilt is enough? You think feeling bad about it fixes anything? No, I know it doesn't. Then what are you going to do about it?" Adrian looked at her. "What can I do? I can't undo it. I can't give them back what they lost. I can't. You can show up tomorrow. You can keep learning. You can use whatever position you eventually earn to make sure it never happens again." Her voice was firm. "Guilt is easy, Adrian. Change is hard. Which one are you choosing?" 3 months later, Adrian had asked Zara for a favor. "I want to find Chef Rafik Tell, your father's friend, the one who was fired." "Why?" "Because I need to understand what happened from someone who was there." Zara had been quiet for a long moment. Then she'd written down an address in Queens. Rafik lived in a small apartment above a Indian grocery store. He was 61 now, retired, living on Social Security and a small pension from a restaurant job he'd taken after Roy Holdings fired him. He opened the door and stared at Adrian with immediate recognition and zero warmth. "I know who you are. I know. I'm not here to defend myself or ask for forgiveness. I'm here because I'm trying to understand what happened to Zara's father. And what happened to you." Rafik studied him, then stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small, but immaculate. Photos on every surface. Family, friends, a younger Rafik in chef's whites standing beside another man who looked like an older version of Zara. "Idris," Rafik said, following Adrian's gaze. "Best friend I ever had. Best chef I ever worked with. He taught me everything." "Tell me what happened, please." Rafik made chai. Then he told the story. "We were understaffed, always understaffed. Your managers cut positions, increased workload, told us we were lucky to have jobs. Idris had high blood pressure. He was managing it, taking medication, but he needed rest, needed reasonable hours. But during busy season, they scheduled him 70 hours a week, threatened anyone who complained. So he worked. Because he had a daughter in college and medical bills, and he couldn't afford to lose the job." Rafik's hands shook around his mug. "The night he died, he told me he felt dizzy. I told him to sit down. He said he couldn't. Manager was watching. 10 minutes later, he collapsed. Heart attack. We called 911 immediately, but the manager," his voice broke. "The manager told us to finish service first, said the ambulance would wait. By the time they got him out, it was too late." Adrian felt like he couldn't breathe. After the funeral, "I tried to organize a petition. Better hours, safety protocols, basic human decency. They fired me within a week, said I was disrupting operations, gave me 2 weeks severance and a letter threatening legal action if I contacted press." Rafik looked directly at Adrian. "Your signature was on that letter." Adrian's hands were shaking. "I don't remember signing it. I signed hundreds of things. I never read them. I just trusted management to handle things." "That's the problem," Rafik said quietly. "People like you trust the wrong people. And people like Idris die." They sat in silence. Finally, Adrian spoke. "I can't bring him back. I can't fix what I did to you. But I'm trying. I'm trying to make the company different. Zara's making it different. And I want. He stopped. Started again. What would help? What would actually mean something? Rafik thought for a long time. Create a scholarship. In Idris's name. For hospitality workers' kids who want to go to college. Make it real. Make it enough to actually change lives. He paused. And stop treating people like they're disposable. That's all we ever wanted. Just to be treated like we mattered. 6 months later, the Idris Malik Memorial Scholarship was announced at a company-wide town hall. Full tuition, books, and housing for 5 hospitality workers' children per year, funded by redirected executive bonus structures, including Adrian's. Zara stood at the podium for the announcement. Adrian stood to the side, not seeking credit, just present. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Several workers were crying. After the meeting, Chef Torres pulled Adrian aside. You've been here 6 months. You show up, you work, you don't complain. She studied him. You're not the same person from that video. I'm trying not to be. Trying isn't the same as being. But it's a start. She paused. Zara asked me to evaluate your performance. I told her you're ready for the next phase, if you want it. Which is assistant manager, operations training, learning the business from middle management up. Still under supervision, still under Zara, but actual responsibility. Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope, small, fragile, but real. I want it. Then don't screw it up. Present day. Adrian arrived at Zara's office at 7:15 a.m. with 2 coffees, one for him, one for her. A habit he'd developed over months of early morning meetings. She looked up from her laptop. You're early. First day of the new role. Didn't want to be late. Nervous? Terrified. She smiled slightly. Good. Means you're taking it seriously. She gestured to the chair across from her. Before you start, there's something I need to say. Adrian sat. 6 months ago, you were the person I hated most in the world. You represented everything wrong with this industry. Everything that killed my father. Her voice was steady. Today, you're someone who shows up at 6 a.m. to work dish stations. Who created a scholarship in my father's name. Who actually listens when line cooks tell you their problems. She leaned forward. I'm not saying you're redeemed. I'm not saying we're friends. But you've earned the right to keep trying. And that's more than I thought you'd ever do. Adrian's throat was tight. Thank you. For the chance, for not giving up on the possibility that I could be different. I didn't do it for you. I did it because the workers here deserved leadership that actually cared. If you became that leader along the way, that's just a bonus. She handed him a folder. Your first assignment. 3 properties are reporting morale issues. I want you to visit each one. Talk to staff. Don't fix anything yet. Just listen. Write down what you hear. Report back in 2 weeks. Just listen? Hardest thing you'll ever do. She smiled. Especially for someone who's used to being the one talking. Adrian took the folder. Started to leave. Stopped at the door. Zara, if your father could see what you've built here, what you've changed, he'd be so proud. Her expression softened. Just for a moment. I hope so. But more than that, I hope the people working here now never have to find out what it's like to lose someone the way I lost him. That's what matters. Adrian nodded, left her office, took the elevator down to the lobby. As he walked through the flagship hotel, the same building where he'd once strode through like he owned not just the property, but the people, he was stopped by a housekeeper he'd worked alongside last month. Mr. Roy, you got promoted? Assistant manager. Operations training. She smiled. Genuine. Warm. That's great. You've earned it. You actually give a damn now. Trying to. Well, keep trying. We need more people like you. Like Ms. Malik. She squeezed his arm. See you around. She walked away, pushing her cleaning cart, humming softly. Adrian stood there, in the lobby. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers. All the luxury his family had built, and realized something fundamental had changed. Not the building. Him. He'd gone from someone who thought service was beneath him, to someone who understood service was the foundation everything else was built on. From someone who mocked a waitress for existing in his space, to someone who understood that space never belonged to him alone. He pulled out his phone, opened his notes, started writing down observations for his first assignment, questions to ask, people to listen to. The work wasn't glamorous, wasn't powerful in the way he'd once understood power. But it was real. It was meaningful. It was making things better. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Roy felt like he was actually doing something worth doing. Family, let me leave you with this. Power doesn't make you superior. Wealth doesn't make you better. Position doesn't give you the right to treat people like they're invisible. Sometimes, karma arrives in 24 hours with an acquisition agreement. Sometimes, the person you mock becomes the person who holds your future. Sometimes the most important work you'll ever do isn't running an empire. It's learning what service actually means. This story teaches us that redemption isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small choices to be better than you were yesterday. It's showing up when it's hard. It's listening when you'd rather talk. It's understanding that every person you encounter matters, regardless of whether they're serving you champagne or signing your paycheck. Adrian lost everything, and in losing it, he found something more valuable: humility, purpose, the understanding that luxury built on cruelty isn't luxury at all. It's just expensive cruelty. If this story moved you, if it made you think about how you treat people when you have power over them, hit that like button. If you believe in second chances earned through actual change, comment service below. And if you want more stories about people who learn that being better is more important than being powerful, subscribe to this channel. I spend hours researching and crafting these stories of transformation. Every like, every comment, every subscription tells me these lessons matter to you too. Remember, you are not above anyone. You are alongside everyone. The person serving your table, cleaning your office, or working behind the scenes. They have names, families, dreams, and dignity. Treat them accordingly. Until next time, family, keep choosing humility. Keep choosing growth. And keep remembering that service isn't beneath you. It's the highest calling there is. Stay blessed, stay humble, and never forget, the person you underestimate today might be your boss tomorrow. Make sure you've earned their mercy.